Cedrick. He's a multilingual journalist focusing on fact-checking, fighting misinformation and disinformation in Africa. I actually grew up in the northern part of Burundi. For senior high school, I went to Banga, and that's where actually life started with me, discovering that I was more an introvert. I was in second year at university, and it got published professionally in Germany in 2018.
What is the story of My Savage Love in short?
Surprisingly, I wrote it thinking this is for Burundians, but I got like comments from the Southern America outbreak of Ebola in Congo, in Eastern DRC. There was also Cyclone Idai in Mozambique, and also the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. So we're recruiting a lot of people from there, and I'm proud that I contributed to those robust projects, which gave international recognitions to the organization and the people. You see something on Facebook, it's exciting. Maybe you think it's a good opportunity, and maybe you want to show that you knew the information before everyone else. You just share. That is misinformation because it's not verified, it's not accurate, and it's misleading somewhere. I was given Madagascar. I think you remember stories about Madagascar engineering a COVID medicine.
That's true. I remember that.
There are failures, there are setbacks that you go through.
That's true.
And sometimes we tend to forget about those, but there are some of those. They are stepping stones of the successes we get later.
That's true. Looking back, if you could send a message to the younger Cedrick, what would just be that message?
Interesting. I would ask him to be patient. Cedrick Irakoze. He's a multilingual journalist focusing on fact-checking, fighting misinformation and disinformation in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in a few words.
Okay, that's in a few words. And are you married?
Yeah, I'm married with a beautiful lady, and I have my son.
Okay.
So like 4 months old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm a multilingual journalist who fights misinformation in Africa.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit, Mr. Cedrick, your background, where you grew up, maybe your childhood,
True.
Growing into that person that you said you are today?
Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah. It was good. I actually grew up in the northern part of Burundi, in a province called Ngozi, especially very close to the border with Rwanda.
Okay.
So I grew up listening more about radio content.
Okay.
From Rwanda, especially because like 95 of radio stations that we captured there are from Rwanda. Yeah.
Butare.
Yeah, Butare, Radio Sarus,
Yeah.
and other radios in that country. And I grew up listening a lot of content from the BBC, from VOA, from even the national radio in Burundi.
Okay.
And maybe that was how I started liking more media and communication at that time.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You said the part that is close to Rwanda. Is that Virgwa what?
No, it's Paramirundi. They call it Mharamirundi. That's very clear. Yeah, it's very close to the border.
Kanyaru.
Yeah.
Kanyaru. All right. That's very interesting. From what I know personally, I know that you did the secondary school, Lycée Rubanga.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in Lycée Rubanga? And how was your life in the Lycée? Can you draw us a picture of Cedrick, that young boy who was in the Lycée Rubanga? Maybe the books you read, the small library. Draw us a picture of Cedrick in Lycée Rubanga.
Actually, I was like a stranger in that place because I did actually my junior high school at Mharamirundi, and for senior high school I went to Banga, and that's where actually life started with me, discovering that I was more an introvert, I didn't like to go out to go to Matana or other places there. I just liked to take books with me, read and like write. If I find some passion in writing, if ever I was like feeling like writing, I would do that. But most of the time I would be reading around the lycée. You know that like there are a lot of avocado trees there. I would just be lying down a tree and reading my book and writing stories, theaters. I think I wrote around 5 or 6 theaters. So yeah,
that's great. And
that was me actually out of classes.
That's great. Yeah. You also said that radio was one of your friends.
Yeah, it was not allowed first.
Yeah,
the boarding school.
True. That's true.
It was not allowed, but I had like a very small, a tiny radio that I used to carry with me, with my books, with my like my notes. I would go out and while reading, I would listen to some radio stations. I would capture Rema FM. There was a program in English, and also deuxième chaîne of the radio and television of Burundi. So that's actually the reason why I would keep a radio. Like I would hide more than I did for a phone. Because they actually one day they stole my phone, but they couldn't find my radio because of how much it was very slowly read.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great. You wrote the first novella.
Yeah.
In Kissa's Love.
Yes.
What is the story behind that? How did you start writing that novella at such a young age?
Actually, as I said, at Lycée Lubanga, I was an avid reader. I would read everything on my way, especially in English.
Okay.
I can't actually count how many books I read in French, but most of them were in English. And that, reading a lot sometimes inspires you to also write.
Yeah, that's true.
So that happened after I joined the University of Burundi. I started with an idea of writing like a short story in the first year at university. And that's the time I discovered actually a short story is too short. I want to do something bigger. And then I had like a plan of writing around 120 pages of a story. So I said, okay, this one is going to be a novella because it's long enough, it's big enough to be contained in a book. And that was in 2017. I was in second year at university, and it got published professionally in Germany in 2018. So that's the My Savage Love. Not specific, reason behind it. It's like an artist. So you go out there and sometimes you think of a story that can inspire, that can be interesting to the people who follow you. That's what happened. And surprisingly, I wrote it thinking this is for Burundians, but I got like comments from the Southern America, from people from countries like Tobago there.
In Trinidad, Tobago.
Yeah, I would get comments saying, okay, Cedrick, this kind of scene you wrote here, this is my village in Trinidad. So I would be surprised, but it's the power of art.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, what is the story of My Savage Love in short?
Oh, okay. My Savage Love. I want to inspire you at least to read it.
Okay.
I don't want to.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's about a young girl who went to boarding school and found love there from someone she didn't expect.
Oh,
yeah, there was a lot of rich guys coming around her, trying
counters.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she didn't love them.
Okay.
She loved the, more modest.
Okay.
I'm avoiding to say poor.
Yeah, that's true.
A more modest guy who was in the surroundings. So it's actually a very interesting story, which brings in themes like poverty, like community stories in Burundi.
That's true.
In rural and in urban centers of the country.
That's interesting.
So yeah, I invite you and to people who watch us to read it someday.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we continue, where can we just to get the book? Where is it now? Is it something to download?
Yes.
Where is it?
It's sold on Amazon and other global
Platforms and
book selling platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. And receiving the Certificat de Mérite in 2018 must have been a proud moment. But behind that achievement, were there a moment of doubt, obstacles that almost made you give up a little bit before that? Yeah.
True.
How was it?
They say, but it's partly true, Burundians don't read. They don't like to read. And, I was doing that knowing like maybe my audience is going to be in South Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania. And people are saying, you're just losing your time. Why don't you do something else? Why do you want to write a book? And I said, okay, it's my passion. Maybe I don't know what will happen tomorrow, but I want just to write it. And at the time I was launching it, we were collaborating with some other African authors from South Africa, from Nigeria, from Algeria. And those guys were saying, okay, we have a support from our university. For example, the guy from the University of Johannesburg, he told me, Cedrick, I'm getting 1,000 copy of print from the university. That is the support they are giving me. They are also giving me a room to, to launch it publicly for the audience to come. And I was like, okay, but that is not possible for me in Burundi. Why am I even doing this? So there was like a lot of discouragement, but, it was a passion I had in me, and I couldn't just let it go. I knew I was going to invest a lot of money in it.
That's true.
And I wasn't expecting any in return. So that's actually what I did. And yeah, it was a proud moment when I received a call from the Vice Chancellor of the University of Burundi. He called and said, Cedrick, can you come here in my office? And I said, well, he said, in the Vice Chancellor's office at Mutanga. I was, okay, I'm coming. Then I left Rohelo campus. I went to Mutanga, and he actually told me, you are invited tomorrow for a big event at the university. You are going to meet some very big personalities. Don't just come in jeans, like in sleek dress well, have suits. Yeah, have a suit and then come at 6 a.m. Be here. And then we drop you in the university bus to Gitega.
Okay.
That is, that event was taking place. So I just prepared for it, and I was afraid, to meet people I didn't know. Fortunately, I went with some of my professors at university, and then we got to Gitega. There was like 1,000 people from university, from the government. There was a lot of like the vice president of the country. There was the vice president of the the National Assembly.
Okay.
There was like the
big names.
Yeah, big names in the country.
That's true.
And surprisingly, after giving me that award, we're having lunch, and then they called me to their table. It was, no, this is not possible. How am I going to talk to the, the ministers, to those people, high-ranking people?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we know you are afraid, but don't be just,
very hot.
Yeah.
Calm your nerves.
Yeah, and, they tried, there are some big people who make you feel like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
That's just, we're talking, we're having a conversation. It's just a story, not your position and my position, just two individuals talking.
yeah.
That's what one of those people made me
Okay.
at that very high table. And, we had a conversation about writing and other stories in Burundi.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. And let us go straight. How about maybe Iowa Creative Writing Fellowship?
Yes.
Did that just change your perspective maybe on storytelling and the
Yeah.
power of language? How was it?
It was in 2018 when I got an invitation from the US Embassy in Burundi. There's someone there who said, Cedrick, I know you're passionate about English, but I don't know about writing. I heard you wrote a book, but maybe this is an opportunity for you to go more professional.
Yeah, that's
To
true.
learn from the State University of Iowa is a very big academic institution, which has a lot of faculty members, even writers.
Where is now based?
It's in the USA, and it was an online program. I said, okay, I can try. I applied. They asked me questions. I had an interview, and then they got me in. So I started the journey, creative writing. It was like fiction writing. We're writing about the Great Lakes region of Africa. And I remember most of the stories that we were writing with Rwandan people, those from Burundi and those from Uganda, were like peer reviewing stories. I would review a story from someone from Uganda, and someone from Rwanda would review my stories. And what I discovered that we have a kind of similar stories in the region, and that actually opened doors for me to even be exposed to a bigger audience, an international audience, because those stories, the graduation actually, and it was really interesting for us to participate in. Yeah.
I'm really loving. In a sentence,
Yes.
what is creative writing?
Creative writing is it's writing from your heart. Actually, it's one of the themes of that training. It's writing from your heart. You write about the history of what happened to you. You write about the history of what's going on around you.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe the people in your community, maybe, whatever happening. You get an inspiration from one thing, and then you develop it into a story. Yeah, you create it, actually.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And let us maybe talk about Translators Without Borders. What motivated you to volunteer in the first place?
Yes.
And how did that experience shape your career?
Yes. One of the biggest problems we have in employment in Burundi is that sometimes we don't like volunteering. And it's actually like an open door for opportunities. I was in third year at university. One of my professors came and said, Cedrick, I know you write very good English, but I don't know about your Kirundi. So if you know about Kirundi, maybe you can try translation. I said, I don't know much about translation, but let me give it a try. And she said, okay, I'm connecting you to someone. The other person was in Canada, who was recruiting a team of volunteers of Kirundi or Rundi translators. And then, I was entrusted with that responsibility to look for other students. I found a team of 15 students, and then we started translating, and we weren't paid anything.
That's true.
And, along the way, some of my classmates decided to quit. They said, no, we are not being paid, but, it's tiresome. So maybe we can ask for money. And I said, no, we are not asking for money. If you can't go ahead, just quit.
Yeah.
And most of them quit. We were left 4 or 5 of us, and then continued. And at the end of that process, I got recruited for a professional internship. Actually, after I graduated, I was working part-time recruiting translators, linguists around the world, from all the regions of the world. I was in that specific department where we would write to linguists, ask them to volunteer. Like there were a different crisis, like the outbreak of Ebola in Congo, in Eastern DRC. There was also Cyclone Idai in Mozambique, and also the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. So we're recruiting a lot of people from there, and I'm proud that I contributed to those robust projects, which gave international recognitions to the organization and the people.
You fight misinformation in Africa.
Okay.
Who are you? Who are you to do that?
Yeah.
What is it about anyway?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay. It's another long story, but cutting it short.
Okay.
I was recruited. Actually, I did interview to become a press, focal point for the European Union Burundi. And the very day that I was done with the interview, I was given a contract there in the European Union. And going back home, I received a call. It was from someone abroad. And he told me, Cedrick, I want you to do this. I want you to come in an interview in 40 minutes. I was downtown, catching a bus, going back to Ngagara. So it wasn't easy. I said, fine, but what is it about? He said, it's a PESA check. What is PESA check? I hadn't heard about it. And I said, it's an organization fighting misinformation. I didn't even know about misinformation, but I went ahead. I read on their website and understood what they did at that time, and then I was recruited as a Burundi correspondent. It's like a national correspondent for a media organization like the other media around the world.
Okay.
So I was asked to verify misinformation. Actually, like her definition, misinformation is false claims that are shared by individuals not knowing it's false. That is misinformation. Like you see something on Facebook, it's exciting, maybe you think it's a good opportunity, and maybe you want to show that you knew the information before everyone else. You just share. That is misinformation because it's not verified, it's not accurate, and it's misleading somewhere.
Okay.
But there's also disinformation. Disinformation is for some people who know it.
Okay.
Actually, a person who knows this is false, but I'm going to mislead people. So I was asked to do that in Burundi. It was an interesting period, 2021.
During the COVID.
Yes, during COVID, there was a lot of content around COVID-19. But also the relations between Burundi and Rwanda at that time was very hot. So there was a lot of content verified.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy first in Burundi because it was new. It was new. No people knew about fact checking. There were journalists, but they were not much informed about verification and fact checking. So that's how it started, and then I started verifying information about Burundi, Rwanda, and also I was given DRC. I verified a lot of COVID-related misinformation about Congo. There is a certain doctor called Jerome Munyangi. He was very famous that time. He came straight from Europe. The president of that country called him to do research about, maybe COVID-19, if, they were able to elaborate a vaccine or, a medicine.
Yeah.
But, I don't know why it didn't work. But that person was very famous, and I would call him like 3 times a week. Dr. Mukwege, who is a Nobel Prize laureate. I was verifying a lot of content around those personalities and their work in Congo. But also I was given Madagascar, which was also a very interesting country in terms of COVID-19. I think you remember stories about Madagascar engineering a COVID medicine in.
That's true. I remember that. They said that they inject you something.
Yeah.
It was maybe something from herbal.
Yeah.
It was just herbal medicines. Yeah.
They call them severe organics.
Okay.
Yeah, and
did that work?
Yeah, it didn't work finally, but they were, at least for them, they were doing research. They were even calling the World Health Organization and Africa CDC to come and help their lab people to verify that. But science is science. You try and fail, but maybe, who knows, maybe in the future they will succeed on something big. But that was also another international exposure for me, because it's different verifying information in Burundi for people who know you, or maybe who understand what your name means. And you're calling someone in Madagascar, it doesn't even understand your language, it doesn't even understand your culture. It wasn't easy, but thank God I made it.
Okay.
Yeah. Misinformation comes from topics people are mostly talking about. Yeah, we cannot create like a very broad topic on information that is not available. They create misinformation around things that people are talking about.
Okay.
From the village, from the cities, from everywhere. In Burundi, it was COVID-19. And in the Western world, it was even worse. People were dying a lot. And, it was really a center of discussion between maybe 2019 and 2021. 2022, it started to a little bit disappear. And yeah, you see, now we are good. We have it behind us.
That's great. You train hundreds of journalists and editors.
Yes.
What have you learned about leadership from managing multicultural teams across Africa?
It's not easy to lead multicultural and multi-language people or teams, because sometimes we think because we speak the same language, maybe you speak French, or I speak French, and then we can communicate. That is not enough, because there are some cultural backgrounds that sometimes shape the way we see things and the way we communicate. That goes beyond language, mere words in a language. And it's an experience that shaped me to first of all learn to be humble. Sometimes I was in a room with people with a lot of experience. Some of those people I was looking up to and say, okay, this person has been here doing this for 20 years, and it's in my second year doing it. So I have to be humble doing this. But also for the people I lead, I also have to show humility and humanity as well, because at some point you get to understand that it's a position in which you are, which doesn't define you, but whatever you make people feel in your team makes them follow the work and maybe make it successful. It's important, like the personality you show people, consideration and humility and collaboration. Even as someone you lead in your team, you have to make them feel good around you, not to to feel like, okay, this is just professional, we are here, we are done with the job, and then we disappear. You have to know, you have to appreciate their job, you have to know their difficulties they are going through. You have to learn about challenges, personal challenges they are going through, and also understand from their own perspectives. It makes a good team.
Can you just tell us, share with us a little bit about Cedrick outside of Burundi? I saw a lot of pictures here.
Yes. Because of the work I do, I'm working in an organization with teams in 26 countries in Africa. That means we may travel, even though I can do my job remotely from Burundi or from anywhere I am. with internet and computer, I can just do my job. But sometimes you need to go there. You need to meet people. You need to do trainings, as you were mentioning.
That's true.
So doing trainings means traveling and going, abroad and meeting with those teams and those people. For example, let's talk about South Africa. For the first time I went to South Africa for training. I was doing a training on in a conference called Investigative Journalism Conference. Yeah, in Africa, because there is a global one and there is an African one. For that time, talking about fact checking, because you understand fact checking is verification of facts in information, in news. It has a little bit of investigation in the news. So that conference between investigative journalists and fact checkers. So we had a lot of presentations there to teach about how some tools work, about verification, online verification, like videos, images. If you see an image, how do you know it's true? How do you know it's maybe, it's fake. Yeah. So that's what we're doing in South Africa, but also in other places like Senegal, other places like Oslo in Norway. Well, there was Global Fact. Global Fact actually is an international gathering of fact checkers around the world.
Okay.
It's like,
and they've been part of that.
Yes, I was part of that. There is an organization called International Fact Checking Network, which is it's like an umbrella of all professional organizations doing fact checking in the world. So they organize that annually, and that time it was in Oslo, and it was good time to meet other fact checkers from around the world, to learn from what was going on, like in Russia, in Ukraine, in other places of the world, in Latin America. There was a lot of information going on, and it's always good to learn from the people who are doing what you want to do or what you are doing, because you get an inspiration. You get to share your stories with people who can even help you move ahead and get better.
What's your dream for the future of language services in Africa and media spaces?
I have to say this. Media spaces in Africa are not really at their best, because some newsroom leaders, like editors, some of us think, like, because Cedrick speaks French and English, when we are writing an article or where we are doing a documentary somewhere, I can ask him to do French because he speaks French. But being bilingual is not necessarily being able to create and craft journalistic content in that other language. You may be good at French, but you are not a translator in French. That you may not be a very good writer in French, even though you can speak it. So I dream of an Africa media space where each and every language is given its place, its share. Like in Burundi, we speak Kirundi, but in some newsrooms, you will hear people saying, okay, this is just Kirundi, let's talk about French. Yes, but this local language, there are other people who need to receive information, vital information in Kirundi, because they don't speak French, they don't speak English. So they shouldn't be victims because they speak a local language.
No.
If all the African languages like Swahili, like Amharic, like Tigrinya, like Zulu are given a place in our African, even Pan-African media or international media based in Africa, that would really be great.
And maybe looking back, if you could send a message to the younger Cedrick, maybe back in the lycée or back in Ngozi, what would just be that message that would just send to the younger Cedrick?
Interesting. I would ask him to be patient. Because
things take time.
Yeah, things take time, and sometimes they are not what we think or what we expect. There are a lot of difficult stories to tell. When someone made it at the top, there are failures, there are setbacks that you go through.
That's true.
And sometimes we tend to forget about those, but there are some of those, they are stepping stones of the successes we get later.
That's true.
And we should really appreciate that even though we are sometimes going through hardships, it's not the end. Maybe it's a start, or it's an experience we want to draw from those very difficult moments to shape our brighter future. So that's what I would say. But also be humble and listen to to elders, to mentors,
professionals.
Yeah, professionals. There is a mistake I can make today because I didn't ask someone, a senior, in what I'm doing today. So it's important to listen to those who made it, and to stay in a room that has a lot of people who are where you are aspiring to be. Yes,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And what the personal setback that look back turned out to be a blessing or a disgrace, looking back?
Yeah. I was afraid to talk in public. Maybe being an introvert, which led me to read a lot of books, which also led me to write, and maybe to become a fact checker. Who knows? People are saying, "Oh, Cedrick is afraid to talk in the public." But I'm not talking in public, but I'm writing what I would say, and that was seen as a negative thing in my childhood. But I had to develop it into a very positive thing. But also when I started doing journalism, people were saying, you are Burundian, you are verifying information involving your country and another country in conflict. You have to take side. You have to be on the side of your country, because you still are Burundian. And from what I was doing and what I do, actually, what I believe in, I believe journalists should just bring facts alone, not commentary, not opinions. And I was standing for that. I was saying, okay, I'm doing journalism. If Burundi is wrong and I'm Burundian, I can just write it because it's a fact. No, I'm not changing it. Maybe it would be a reason for Burundians to try to change things that are not working well. So yeah, that was it. But it helped me grow in a real professional, to understand fact is a fact. I don't have to alter it because it's favoring me or my community or my country or even my friend. Yes.
That's interesting. Before we close our discussion, I would like to ask you, talking about fact checking, because you see that we're in digital era.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, we are bombarded by a lot of information.
True.
Is fact checking for professionals like you, or anybody who's watching this like me or any other person out there?
Yes.
How can we just assess or check the information? How can we just take what you see on Facebook, Instagram, or everywhere?
Yes. There is a lot of things that professionals can do, but also our audiences, or even the people who are not in journalism, there are steps that they can take to fight misinformation and disinformation. One is to doubt. You need to doubt everything you see online, because yes, doubt about the authenticity of the information you see. Sometimes they are being shared by people who don't know, or sometimes there are even people who know it and they are just sharing because they have words in that
from one group or the other. Yeah.
So you have to think about the source of information. Who is a person who shared this information? Is that person mentioning the source of where it came from, or is this video, similar to that general discourse I know? Let's give you an example. We're talking about, President Trump, beating Zelensky in the Oval Office. There are people sharing that information as a video, but some of them don't know it's a deep fake. It was not real. It was a computer-generated program that created that information. You have to think about, yes, maybe the presidents can argue on things. They can, have differences on opinion on things. But is it really easy to see them fighting like this? That is common sense. You have to think about if that happened to a lot of people. If it didn't happen, you have to pay attention. Maybe I need to verify it. I need to ask someone. If I'm not able to verify it, send it to journalists, or send it to professionals who have tools.
Okay.
Because we have tools to verify if a video is a deep fake, it's AI generated. Artificial intelligence is doing a lot of harm to the information spaces today. So if you don't have the tools, but you were attentive enough, you ask someone else, do you think this is true? And they can help verify it.
That's true. Mr. Cedrick, thank you so much for coming. It has been a pleasure to be with you today on set. What you're doing. Also, we did the same listen.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cedrick, for coming.
You're welcome.